All right, you grasshoppers, it is a fabulous day today. The great Ali Krug is back with us. How you doing, Ali?
I'm good. I'm back from New Jersey, Tom. I made it. New Jersey is a fierce place.
Oh, it is too. Yes, the driving there is a little difficult. Yes. Would you have hockey?
It's called the Garden State, and now I know it's only the Garden State for the people who are fearless, because the bees have shadows that are the size of like Mini Coopers as they hover over you, planning their attack.
What was big bees?
Big bees always buzzing at you. And I was trying to help my dad with his house, right? Because sadly, I don't know if I've shared with your grasshoppers, his wife passed in January due to COVID. And so we've been going up a couple times to try to help him. And I was determined to get the weeding done around his house before the heat came. And those bees were just like, I was screaming and running from the house. The neighbors must have been like, it's happening, but I wouldn't give up, Tom. You'd be proud of me.
Nice job. Nice. Has there a bee problem all the time? Does he always have issues with that?
I think it's just the Garden State has amazing flowers, amazing trees all in bloom right now. And the bees are loving it. Everybody's out. Everyone's happy. It's awesome, except that I'm not a huge fan of being stung in the butt while I'm weeding.
The fabulous bees. Fabulous is the word today, Ali.
They got me, but it was like a warning shot. Something stung me. I'm not sure what it was, but it wasn't as bad as it could be. But it was like a warning shot. You know, it was like, hey, you're in my area. So I came back in the afternoon.
They're afraid of you, Ali. That's what it was.
I don't know.
So those of you that don't know Ali, I want to make sure that I introduce you all the time. We actually had never met personally. We were introduced by a friend. I was down in Virginia Beach. I'm on board of a Warrior for Life Fund with this fabulous man, Bob Pizzini, who's served in the Navy. And he introduced me to Ali. Ali is an epidemiologist. She's a lumberjack. She's a mother, wife. What else do you do? You're a hockey. Not a coach, but you're
no, definitely not a coach. Like I told you, I barely know offsides. I'm a just amazing cheerleader. I yell positive things for all children, both teams, both goalies. You know, just.
So Allie's great, and Allie's great. I need to give her a boost of confidence all the time because she doubts her sometimes when we get on the show. You're fantastic on the show here. You're very kind. You always tell me all the time how you explain things very much so that we can all understand all the pandemic and the vaccines and all that kind of stuff. What's the name of your company? What's the name of your company again?
It's Artemis Biomedical Communications, and I know it's a mouthful, but it was meant to be easy. The website was meant to be easy if you have nothing to write down. ABC Medical Writing. I came up with it on a marathon, and I thought it made sense at the time.
Nice, good. So. And Ali's husband proudly serves our country too in the Navy. He's a nuclear. Yes. I call him a nuclear expert.
No, I don't think he would say that at all. He's in naval reactors, and he's almost approaching 30 years. And Tom, you're very kind to give kudos to so many people. There's so many hardworking people out there. Bob is one. Your other buddy, Rich Appleby down here, the president of the Hampton Roads Youth Hockey Association. We landed here after 4 years in Japan and got to meet these incredible people. And all of the hockey families, man, what a great community hockey is to just bring us in and give us a place to feel a sense of belonging and activity for the kids. So
yeah, definitely. With your husband then, so is he always you're stationed in Virginia Beach there. Does he just stay there or does he travel?
He did travel some actually when we first got here. He was actually traveling quite a bit down to Tennessee and where else did he go? I think he went to Georgia. He had a trip recently almost planned to New York, but he's not gone as much now as he was when he was on a submarine and on a carrier. He shifted careers basically midstream in the Navy. Right. So we were just talking about the military actually, right, Tom, and mentoring people and mentoring young people. So, you know, I get on Instagram. I'm on Instagram so that I can follow our oldest, who we spoke of last week.
Oh, okay.
who I must say redeemed himself. We were talking about.
You're monitoring him.
Yes, we were talking about shady half truths last week. Remember, Barry asked us if exaggeration is a lie, and we've all agreed that we think it is, but we're going to work toward the whole truth, right? Well, the oldest is a wonderful boy. I should not discredit him in any way, and he finished the week strong last week. But with regard to children and life careers, we were just talking about what to do and how to support those who feel a little bit adrift in the middle of the pandemic, right? Like school has been, I think, challenging for some of them to really feel engaged with when they're home. It's really hard for them to focus 100% when they're home and they're on laptops and they could be doing their own thing, but looking like they're paying attention, you know? So I think it's a hard time for kids to feel like, what options really are open right now down the road and in the next year or 2 years, 3 years. And I just want to put a plug out there for all of those people who want to see the world actually, who feel a little bit trapped and who feel maybe at, adrift and hoping for some direction. The military really is a wonderful career option.
Totally. Yeah, it can really set you up for after you're done in the military as well, right?
Yeah, and if you're kind of struggling with structure and discipline and self-discipline, I mean, you have to bring yourself to it, or you're not going to get as much out of it as the next guy. I mean, you can be adrift in the military and just be told what to do if you want that, or you can make a real life for yourself by taking every challenge that comes your way, taking every hard test that comes your way, certifying in everything that you can. I mean, there's still options within the military too.
Right.
So
it's interesting you talk about the pandemic too, and all the people are home, maybe dealing with, feeling depressed or just feeling down or whatever, trapped, all that kind of stuff. I think I mentioned to you this former New York Ranger, the goaltender, Corey Hirsch, fantastic guy. He had dealt with mental health issues himself and got help many years ago. And he's really an advocate now for other people with mental health. And we've got an event planned where we're going to do, got a good friend of mine, Steve Mazzilli, that owns the Gotham Comedy Club down in Manhattan. And we're going to do an event there where we bring in, and I'd love to have you be a part of it too. I guess I haven't even talked to you about it to you on air. But we want like people who are viewed as really strong people, successful people in the military, athletes, women who run businesses, whatever, get people are viewed that people view them as they don't have issues, right? That they're totally strong all the time.
Yeah.
And we want them to talk about many mental health issues they have, or any weaknesses they have, or things, feelings or whatever it is, just to show people that are at home. And listen, if that person can talk about it openly and publicly, then I can feel comfortable going out and talking about it openly and publicly too. So really interesting. We got a plan. We're going to do it in August sometime. I think September. I think September is the whole month, or maybe 1 week is suicide prevention month, I believe. So we want to get it teed up, and we'll have that. We'll probably tape it and have it on Facebook and Instagram and all kinds of places.
Oh, that's great, Tom. That's really great. To be honest with you, I have somewhat mixed feelings, because I think that some words like trauma and things are overused a little bit, actually. I think some people are well deserving of saying they've been through trauma, and then other people have been through hard times, and we call it trauma. And in some ways we take away from the difficulties that some people have been through that's truly traumatic. And then but then there are other people who haven't been through the same kind of trauma, but for them it was trauma. So I don't want to do them a disservice either, but in this effort to kind of normalize mental health and mental health challenges, I think we do need to be careful insofar as having the blues is normal. And then when does it become a clinical illness, right? And we've touched on this before, and that's not a decision for me to make, certainly, but it's something for people to reach out and get help for. And then the people who are actually trained to deal with can provide the support and kind of titrate the response.
Right.
But I've given that some thought lately, because on my Twitter feed, I see a lot of, we need to normalize trauma, and we need to normalize this and that. And I think, the pandemic has been really hard for people. I think that a lot of people are way more fearful than really they need to be. I just heard from Exterminator, came to our house yesterday, was talking about how he went to a woman's house, and, she was in her mid-40s or whatever. And she asked him if he was vaccinated, and he said no. And she just really got extremely fearful, even though he was wearing a mask. So I think that, sometimes I'm so immersed in my own world of knowledge, where I spend every day studying COVID and every day understanding what are real risks and, related to vaccine or disease or whatever, constantly in my mind calibrating risk. How much of a risk is it? How many zeros are there before the one, in that decimal? Is it 0.01 out of like 1,000, or is it 0.001? But not everybody is in that world, and they're getting different feedbacks. And so I think I forget just how stressful the pandemic has been for people who are being bombarded with all kinds of information and don't really have a way to calibrate it just kind of naturally, internally, as they hear it.
Right. And the news doesn't help. I mean, I'm not blaming the news for this thing. It's not, they're trying to do their best as well. But it's like, you talked about this before, and I thought you put it very well. We can do our own research too. Like if you're worried about things with the internet now, I mean, there's no reason to get on the internet. Don't listen to the news. I'm not trying to discredit any news stations, but do your own homework if you're not sure about it too.
Yeah, totally. Because the media folks are in a bind too. I mean, they're trying to find stories every single day, right? And it's hard. It's hard to have a story unless you have like a punchline or a hook. And I feel for them too.
Well, and you touched on it too. Some people get distrustful because they change. Like Fauci, for instance, will change his opinion on things. But you put it very well that he has to change because this is constantly evolving all the time. These new variants are coming in, so you're changing. Should we have masks? Should we not have masks? Should we open up or not? It's constantly changing all the time, right?
You have a good memory, Tom. You remember our conversations. You always ask good questions. I'm going to admit to you that I have like a memory issue regarding this whole the thing that's currently in the news.
Right.
This whole mask outside thing. In my mind, I never thought masks outside were required or recommended unless you were in really close contact with someone in a long conversation or a crowd. But maybe I have just interpreted the rules the way I believe they should be written. Right. And because I don't really understand where the controversy is right now, because that should never have been an issue. It is okay to go outside with no mask. Right. It always was.
Well, is it becoming, I missed that. Is it becoming an issue now where people are?
I guess so. I think I feel like I missed a headline somewhere where like it wasn't okay for a time. Or there was some kind of like CDC revision that I missed. Right. I actually went back to the CDC website and I was wondering if they had a historical archive of like changes that have been made so that I could kind of be like, okay, I wasn't crazy. It never was, or it was, or I wanted to do an audit, right? So that I could understand where I might have missed something. And I went to the website and there was like very briefly yellow highlight on one line. I was like, oh, that's interesting. When you refresh your page, maybe they highlight what's changed. Right. So I went back and refreshed the page and the yellow highlight wasn't there anymore. So it's possible maybe they have an algorithm that highlights the new things on the page when you first visit it, but don't refresh because then it'll be gone.
Oh, I see.
So I'll keep an eye on that and see if maybe they have done that for those of us who are really curious about what's changed.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of go back a little bit to people at home, and this may be splitting hairs when I bring this up, but I think maybe we talked about it too. When they use terms like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, do you think it's better to not say the disorder? Like, I think, did we touch on this before? Like, try to get away from calling it a disorder, like something totally wrong with you. I mean, if you've gone through stress, you've gone through stress. It doesn't mean there's something like wrong with you. You've gone through some stressful event.
Well, this is where we venture into my opinion, and I'm not a mental health professional, but it gets back to that conversation around some people have been through true trauma, and they do have PTSD, and it's a real thing. And it's kind of like, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as well. There are people who really, really struggle with it, really do need medication to try to approximate a normal life, right? And then there's other people who have a touch of it. Things in life, in my opinion, are on a continuum. And the point at which along that continuum you decide you need to intervene and take medication or do something else is at the individual's discretion in consultation with their provider, right? So it could be different for each person, and they may need some support for a while and then can come off it, or they might need support forever or a longer time, right? So things are highly variable. But so I do think for some people, yes, it is a disorder. For some of us, I just decided this morning, I think I have post-pandemic stress disorder. I feel a sense of exhaustion, and I'm not really sure where it's coming from, other than this constant vigilance and this constant attention to detail and constant splitting hairs, as you said, like, what's okay today and where was it yesterday and where is it going? Like it becomes really taxing.
Well, it is. It's like we've kind of, and I know for me, it's like I've kind of fallen into this rut of what my life is, right? But life wasn't like this before. It's like you're limited to what you can do and where you can go. So it's, I'm
only laughing, Tom, because your rut is like a really healthy rut. And I just wish I could fall into the Tom rut and just stay there and not be able to climb out.
Well, I guess that's true. Yeah. So in some ways, for me, the time during the pandemic has given me more time to study more and learn more things and, improve my diet, the fasting and exercise and everything, even, like learning to learn more, learning from you. That's one thing I tell you, like, I've really learned a lot is like every interaction you have with somebody, like I really try to pay attention more to learn something from, no matter who it is. I'm so fortunate to meet so many great people. Talk about Navy SEALs, yourself, Bob Bazzini, everybody, and it just seemed like you pick up something. Everybody.
There are. I mean, the interactions we have with other human beings are so precious, and just it make our lives so much richer for them. I mean, even the difficult times, like going up and visiting my dad, and in some ways, I selfishly don't want to experience going through visiting him and seeing him alone and experiencing the grief of the family who lost their mother, right? In some ways, I shrink from that. I'm human, just like everybody else. I don't really want to re-experience that. I like to. We've talked about making our beds, right, Tom? Every morning you make your bed. Well, I'm kind of that way emotionally. I like to make my bed emotionally. Get the sheets tight, get the corners tucked, and kind of keep things to myself and be done with it and move on for the day, right? I do that emotionally too. And, to go and re-experience and be with someone in their time of need is to unmake that bed and sit on it and crease it all up, knowing that you're going to have to make it again.
Right.
And that's difficult, right? But in doing that, you also learn a lot about yourself and you learn about others and just being with them. If anybody listening to your show right now is wondering if they're doing good by going there and being with someone who's struggling, I'm certain that you do, even if it's hard for you and it feels like it's another layer of burden to take on during this already difficult year. If you have the strength to do it and you can be there for somebody, it really makes a difference. You can always make your bed the next morning, your emotional bed too. You can make it again.
Totally.
But
I actually think you make yourself stronger too. I mean, it's great that you're helping somebody else, but I think you really build inside. It's almost like you break a bone. You have that. Once that bone re-heals, it's stronger, right? I mean, but your analogy of making the bed, you can always make the bed again. So I make the bed in the morning, but if I ever sit on it during the day, okay, now I have to make it again because it's wrinkled up, right?
The other thing I enjoyed this weekend, and I think you'll enjoy, is like, oh my goodness, if you were there at our family, we tried to have dinner last night together because we were all in one place, and right after dinner, Sam gets up, the older one. He's like, all right, after dinner push-ups. I wasn't even done eating.
Nice.
He's like, 45 push-ups. Let's go.
Did he really? Nice.
Yes.
How are we doing as a family with the pull-ups?
I'm doing okay. We think our pull-up bar is too narrow, so I can't really get a good grip, but I'm up to like 1, and I need to be in the Tom ditch again. I kind of fell off. I was working on 2 or 3 a day, and now I'm just to 1, so I need to get back at it.
All right, that's fine. And again, you didn't want to try getting a bands to assist yourself with like pulling them up.
No.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, I tried, but those bands kind of scare me. I was thinking like they're gonna break, and then pop me in the face and shock me like the bees.
Yeah. Now, is your husband into fitness too? I think I've seen a picture of him. He looks like he's a fit guy.
I would say he's into it. Whether or not it happens every day is a different matter, but we're working on it. We drag him out, and my boys actually brought up to New Jersey with us these things that we found in our truck. They're called like foam padded like bats, basically mashungas. You ever seen those things?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, we've left them in our truck while we were in Japan. They were in storage for 4 years. We found them when we moved back, and now we never go anywhere without them. So like this family of mom and 2 boys of 3 is driving up to New Jersey, and we have like 7 swords in the back of the car, just in case we run out of things to do. So after dinner, after breakfast, after lunch, the boys are spilling out into the peaceful neighborhood in the New Jersey dusk with a nice sunset, and it's like boom, 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 going crazy with the mashungas. So just some fun and some physical activity they exercise for about half an hour beating each other with the mashungas. Yeah. So even if you just pack that.
Good. Teaching your sons a little violence. It's good. I like that. Yeah. Good.
Well, actually, yeah, they make a really satisfying whacking sound. Yeah. And, if you're frustrated, who's not frustrated right now? What better way to get it out than with a couple, bright green mashungas on the front lawn having fun?
Oh. I'm pretty good. I think I told you a story, and I haven't done this very much. It's probably about a month ago. I was going for my march in the morning. This beautiful place, over right by the ocean, the water and everything. And this car drove by. It's a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit at this place. The car drove by, maybe going 25 or 30 miles an hour. So I'm out there all by myself. I found myself screaming and yelling at this guy. He's way down the road. He can't hear me. There's nobody around, and I'm just screaming. It was so funny. I caught myself doing it. I just died laughing because, like, what the heck are you doing, you idiot? Like, there's nobody around. The guy was breaking the speed limit. What are you going to do? So it was, I don't do it too often.
Yeah, Tom's trying to keep the peace in the neighborhood.
Yeah, screaming at some guy that can't even hear me. Yeah. Okay, I had a question for you too. Landscapers here, and I want to make sure. I don't want to lose faith in you. Do you cut your own lawn?
Actually, yes. Ben cut it yesterday, and a family tradition is to drive a small tractor or anything with tires before you get in a car and behind the wheel. So my dad has a tractor. It's smaller than when I grew up. We had a 60-inch International Harvester when I grew up. So that's what I learned to drive on. Like you had to step on a brake on one side. Like say I wanted to turn to the right, you brake the right rear wheel and you can spin it. You probably didn't know what that's like. So we got some tractor time up in New Jersey too.
Oh, good. So the kids can learn to drive the tractors before they learn to drive a car. Excellent. Yes. Yeah.
Ben was actually very good. The younger one was actually very good. He was given the front lawn. The older boy really had a great time, but had no real plan. In the back.
You can't have straight lines. You have to have straight lines. What's wrong?
Yeah, my dad was sitting there on his little bucket going, what is he doing? So he wasn't really optimizing he thought he was optimizing the amount of work he was going to invest in the backyard, but I think he was really just having so much fun driving around.
Right. Now, are you pretty patient with the kids when they're learning to drive? Like, are you able to relax and let them drive?
I don't know yet. We haven't put said young man behind the wheel of an actual car, but I think that I have a pretty decent sense of humor and I love adventure. And so I think in the right environment, it'll be quite hilarious. Right. And actually the older one always had trouble pouring milk in a glass, and he still does. I don't know why it is, but the milk goes everywhere except in the glass. So I remember when he was like 10, I took him outside. I'm like, I think you can park our truck in the carport better than you can pour milk in the glass. Let's go find out. So we got the truck. He's like 10, so he could fit in my lap still, right? He's a big kid, but he was able to still fit back there. And he did. He got the truck. He steered it into the carport better than he can pour milk. Nice. So I think it'll be okay. And I hope I keep my sense of humor, but I don't know. Are you for hire?
Oh, I was terrible. With I bet you I would be better with somebody else's children, but with my kids, my boys, I was terrible. I just, I don't know what it was. I just felt like, Shane, the oldest one time, we're driving down the road and he was doing fine. He's a great driver. And a school bus was coming towards us. So the yellow light started to flash, the red light started to flash. And I said, you need to start slowing down. So instead of slowing down, he sped up and you need to stop. So he finally stops. We didn't have to because the red lights had not come on yet. Now there's a pile of cars behind us, and I'm sitting there lecturing him on the road. All these cars behind us. I totally lost my mind altogether. So yeah, I was not good. I was not a good driver.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for a run before I get in the car. You know, kind of get it, all systems chill.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, but I don't know I don't think I could have worked out enough to chill. I don't know what it was. Because I have total faith in them. We've done many other things together. And same thing, they've driven sitting on my lap when they're smaller, but driving the car for some reason. I guess I was so worried that they were going to get hurt or whatever driving a car that I just was.
Yeah. There's a lot of other variables. I mean, there's other drivers on the road.
Yeah.
And so that adds a whole dimension. Like I taught my kids how to split wood when they were 5 with an axe, right? But that's only the child, the axe, the wood.
Yeah, yeah, totally true. Yeah,
when you're in a car, you've got like the lanes, you've got your own child driving. Will they stay on the road or not? And then you've got cars behind you, cars coming towards you, pedestrians. There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
understandable.
Yeah. So where we're at with the pandemic and the vaccine and everything, have we progressed the way we should be progressing?
I think so. I just saw somebody this morning, somebody I regard, saying like this little blip of a 4th wave hopefully will maybe be the last of it. But I think that I've also seen conversation that I tend to believe, which suggests, excuse me, that it's not a zero COVID environment is not a likely environment to be hoping for. There's going to, I don't think so. There's 4 other coronaviruses that cause the common cold. And I think that probably we're looking at this becoming one of those and becoming endemic. But hopefully with enough people vaccinated, this, new virus that has come out with kind of a, some vigor. Its debut to the world was fairly vigorous and very deadly for older people with an age gradient that I think I might have mentioned this to you before, the hockey stick age gradient, where the older people have 8,000 times the risk. An 80-year-old has 8,000 times the risk of an 8-year-old for mortality. That kind of a hockey stick curve is a little unusual. It's very different than the flu. But we also have vaccines oftentimes that are a decent match for the flu. They're maybe 50% effective. The mRNA vaccines are upwards of 90% in the real world effective, 80% with the first dose. So I think that we're going to be able to save the lives of people who need the most protection and resume a degree of normalcy for the rest of us, I think. I hope.
Right. You mentioned something earlier when we were talking there. The coronavirus causes the common cold?
Mm-hmm. And so does adenovirus and rhinovirus. There's a bunch of them, but there's 4 coronaviruses that have been around for a long time.
I didn't know that. I thought this was all new. Oh, okay.
You thought this coronavirus was totally new? Yeah. No, there's others. There are people, virologists who could name right now the 4-letter names for each of them. I remember when I was in Japan, I was looking into coronaviruses that cause the common cold other than SARS-CoV-2, and was just kind of curious to see that actually there is a case report of one that caused, I believe, a woman to be admitted to the hospital who was like in her 40s, roughly my age, and was in acute respiratory distress. And it wasn't SARS-CoV-2, but it read just like any other news report that you would read on, a young, otherwise healthy person having. So yeah, I mean, there's other coronaviruses that cause the common cold, and sometimes they do cause severe disease. This, in a sense, this is not an entirely new thing. The thing that's new is that it's a novel type of coronavirus, right, and it's a pandemic. So it's everywhere. It's affecting the entire world at once. And we had no vaccine previous to now for coronaviruses, right, because they just were not deadly enough for enough people. So it's really a really incredible advance in modern medicine to be able to develop this so fast, right, and provide people the hope that they can avoid, severe illness and death. It's just incredible.
I had a friend of mine in Michigan. Actually, I do a show with Kevin Allen, and he took his family to a baseball game in Detroit, the Tigers game. And there was no requirements to have a test or have the vaccine. They had the mask and they took their temperature and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that's how we'll proceed with sporting events and all those different things, that you don't have to have had the vaccine or get tested?
It's hard to know. I mean, I think it depends on how packed the stadium is and if they had capacity limits and if people were able to spread out, or is it a fully packed stadium? I think I mentioned this to you last week that probably going forward, there's going to be more and more personal risk assessment. People will be able to look at their own risks, their own health conditions, their own risk tolerance, the people in their households, and make decisions about whether or not they want to go to a game that has no real restrictions on it, that is 100% capacity. And then there will be other situations where they might feel more comfortable because this particular venue is introducing capacity restrictions. So I don't really know to what degree the government and public policy will be involved in setting restrictions, or if people will be able to take more and more ownership of that themselves and decide what they're comfortable with. But getting back to the worldwide rollout of the vaccine, I should have mentioned that, people are probably aware that India is having a really hard time right now. And here we are in the US with plenty of vaccines. The mRNA vaccines are widely available at local pharmacies, and anyone age 16 and up is. So if you're feeling a little bit guilty about, the rest of the world not really having access to vaccines like we do, that those are harder to ship. They need to be kept cold. And so one of our vaccine developers, you may have seen Dr. Hotez mentioned on the news. He's trying to get on lots of news channels. He's working on an older model vaccine that would be, he's calling it one that would be available for the rest of the world because it's much easier to transport. It's a recombinant vaccine. So he's working on developing that now for India, but it's not available yet. So I guess I would just say, if you have some, desire to do something to protect yourself because it's available here in the US, and you feel guilty about India not having access, just please make sure that our doses don't go to waste. And so insofar as you can, get yourself protected and those around you, because every 20% coverage that we get in adults actually brings the transmission among kids down by half. Right. So kids can't get vaccinated. There's a lot of debate about whether or not they actually should. Do they really need to? There may be vaccines available. The next policy controversy will be, should kids be required to get vaccinated? But at this point, I think right now, for adults who are comfortable with getting vaccinated and are a little bit on the fence, then I wrestled my own personal decision to the ground last week and decided it was worth it. We could spend a show talking about what I ended up deciding, because I was quite anxious about it, and why I decided to actually get vaccine. We could do that sometime if you're curious, but it's— and
correct me if I'm wrong here too, but I have a real strong belief that if you also are really taking good care of yourself and eating good foods, and I'm really into the ginger and turmeric and all that kinds of stuff. Ginger is great for boosting your own immune system. I think that can help you too. Again, I don't want to mislead people and say something that's not true. That's my belief, but do you believe that?
I think we talked about that. I mean, everything that you can do to stay healthy and stay moving. In fact, after we last spoke last week, I think I texted you an article that came out in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. Yes. That talked about just moving. Yeah. Simply moving, having an active, so they looked at 3 different levels, like almost no activity, moderate activity, and an active lifestyle, which is 150 minutes or more per week of activity. just at across that very minimal 3-point continuum, they saw a dose response effect of being active in reducing hospital admissions for COVID, so a severity of disease. And that was even after adjusting for other things. So the only things that they couldn't control for was organ transplant and age. So those two things, even if you were active, still modified your risk.
Right.
But for other people who have some of these conditions that we think are like almost a sure bet you're going to end up having severe disease, like, you know, diabetes, asthma, heart disease, obesity, being active versus not active. So two people having those conditions, cardiovascular disease or diabetes, the active person was going to have lower risk of going to the hospital and having severe disease than the inactive person.
Right. That should be, I'd like to go on a campaign. That's a big thing for me now. If we can just, as a society, if we can, you know, look at food in a different way, it's not about it. Listen, you can still enjoy your food. I made a really nice lobster soup on that for the Sunday cookie show.
Did you?
Oh yeah. I was proud of myself. I've learned now I make my own broth. So I get all kinds of vegetables, peppers, onions, garlic, celery, can't remember what else I put in there. And then I roast that up. I put seasoning there, roast it up, and then I put it in the food processor and process it. And it comes out, you add a little bit of water if you want. So that's my broth. And I just cooked up some lobster tails and threw it in there together. So it's really healthy. It's just all vegetables and lobster, but it tastes fantastic. So there's so many ways you can, if you really put some time in it. We had a couple of shows about this. If you really put some time in and some thought, prepare your foods, you can have healthier foods that really still taste great. So,
no, that's true. It's true. Like good food, but even if you're not quite at a point where, you know, Tom, you cook a lot better than I do. But so for your grasshoppers who aren't quite there yet, just moving. Oh, yeah. Just moving like across that continuum I mentioned, even mildly active had a benefit. So just do a little, like you say, Tom, you always say, be better than you were yesterday. Yeah. Even that makes a difference. Oh, it totally does. You know, get outside, you know, go for a walk in the morning, wherever you want, especially now the weather's getting nice and there's so many great places. I mean, there's always parks wherever you are and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, get out there. All right, Allie, great job. It was a fabulous show on a fabulous day. Fabulous is the word today, everybody. Okay. Fabulous. All right. Great to see you, Allie. Sugoi. That's a new Japanese word. Sugoi. Is that fabulous? It's not really fabulous, but it's like amazing. Like, so if you want to sound like a guy, which I love to sound like a guy in Japanese. I don't know why, but I love to say suge. Suge. That's amazing. Is that yeah. Like, that's like when you're done lifting, Tom, and you manage to pump out your 12 on your wobbly things. You go, suge. Yeah. Suge. Yeah. All right. Good deal. Thanks, Al. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.